In April of 1912, two major historical events occurred within just days of each other. The Titanic tragedy struck on April 15th, when the infamous ship sank after hitting an iceberg. Just 5 days later, on April 20th, Fenway Park in Boston opened its doors, becoming the home of the Boston Red Sox. These two events, one of heartbreak and the other of celebration, unfolded in the same week, marking a remarkable moment in history. The Qing dynasty of China collapsed in 1912, the same year the Titanic disaster occurred. Both events marked the end of an era, one in imperial China and the other in maritime history. William Shakespeare and Pocahontas were both alive during the late 1600s. Shakespeare, born in 1564, passed away in 1616, while Pocahontas, born around 1596, lived until 1617. Their lifetimes briefly overlapped in history. In 1969, two historic events marked the year. On January 30th, the Beatles gave their final public performance atop the Apple Studio in London. Later in July, the United States made history when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first humans to land on the moon. These events, one of musical farewell and the other of space exploration, defined a transformative year. In May of 1994, South Africa witnessed a historic moment as Nelson Mandela was inaugurated as the country's first black president, marking a significant milestone in the nation's fight against apartheid. Just 1 month later, in the United States, the infamous O.J. Simpson low-speed police chase captured global attention following the murder of his ex-wife. These two events, occurring in such a short time, captivated the world and became pivotal moments in history. Pablo Picasso died in 1973, the same year Pink Floyd released their iconic album, Dark Side of the Moon. These two cultural milestones, one in art and the other in music, happened in the same year, shaping both worlds. The Titanic's maiden voyage took place in 1912, the same year MDMA, commonly known as ecstasy, was first synthesized. These two events, one marking a tragic disaster and the other a milestone in chemical research, occurred in the same year. The last surviving witness to the Lincoln assassination appeared on the TV game show I've Got a Secret in 1954, just weeks before his death. This rare moment connected a piece of American history with mid-20th century television. Samurai, the fax machine, and Abraham Lincoln all existed during the same period in the mid-19th century. Abraham Lincoln served as president from 1861 to 1865, while samurai were still active in Japan. The fax machine, in its early form, was also developed around this time, connecting different aspects of history. In 1950, the Korean War began on June 25th, marking the start of a 3-year conflict that would reshape the region. Just a month later, in July, Marlon Brando made his film debut in The Men, directed by Fred Zinnemann. These events, one of international conflict and the other of cinematic achievement, unfolded in the same year. In 1997, two world-changing events unfolded. On August 31st, the world mourned the tragic death of Princess Diana, who passed away in a car accident in Paris. Just 2 months earlier, in June, J.K. Rowling revolutionized children's literature with the release of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone in the UK, introducing readers to a magical world that would go on to captivate generations. These two events, one of grief and the other of excitement, left lasting impacts on global culture. In 1963, two pivotal moments in American history occurred within months of each other. In August, Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his iconic "I Have a Dream" speech, inspiring a nation with his vision of equality and justice. Tragically, just a few months later, on November 22nd, President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, marking a moment of profound sorrow and shock for the United States and the world. These events, one of hope and the other of tragedy, defined a transformative year in history. In January of 1933, German President Paul von Hindenburg appointed Adolf Hitler as Chancellor, a decision that paved the way for Hitler's rise to dictatorship in the following years. Meanwhile, in the United States, a significant shift occurred by the end of that same year, as the country repealed prohibition laws, ending a 13-year ban on alcohol. These two key events, one setting the stage for a dark chapter in history and the other marking a cultural and legal change, unfolded within the same year. In 1980, two major events shocked the world. On May 18th, the most catastrophic volcanic eruption in American history occurred at Mount St. Helens in Washington, resulting in 57 deaths and widespread destruction. Later that year, on December 8th, the music world was struck by tragedy when John Lennon was shot and killed outside his New York City apartment. These two events, one of natural disaster and the other of profound loss, marked a year of unforgettable sorrow and change. In August of 1962, the world was shaken by the death of Marilyn Monroe, who passed away from an overdose on August 4th, leaving fans and the media in mourning. Just 2 months later, in October, tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union reached a dangerous peak during the Cuban Missile Crisis, bringing the two superpowers to the brink of war. These two events, one of personal tragedy and the other of global peril, unfolded within months of each other, forever marking the year. In 1955, two significant events shaped America's future. Ray Kroc opened the first McDonald's franchise in Des Plaines, Illinois, marking the beginning of what would become a global fast food empire. At the same time, that year saw Rosa Parks make a courageous stand against segregation when she refused to give up her seat on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama, sparking the civil rights movement. These two moments, one changing the food industry and the other advancing the fight for equality, defined a transformative year in American history. In 1914, two monumental events occurred that would shape history. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife, Duchess of Hohenberg, ignited the spark that led to World War I, altering the course of global politics. At the same time, in the world of entertainment, Charlie Chaplin made history by debuting his iconic character, the Tramp, in The Kid auto races at Venice, marking the beginning of a legendary film career. These events, one of global conflict and the other of cultural significance, unfolded in the same year. In 1941, two significant events occurred months apart. The attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th led the U.S. into World War II. Earlier that year, in October, the Mount Rushmore Monument was completed, becoming an iconic symbol of American history. These events, one of tragedy and the other of achievement, shaped the nation's future. In 1937, Disney debuted its first full-length animated film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, a groundbreaking moment in cinema history. Just a year later, in 1938, the Spanish Civil War began, marking a significant period of conflict in Europe. These two events, one of cultural innovation and the other of political turmoil, unfolded closely together. In 1980, the United States boycotted the Summer Olympics in Moscow to protest the Soviet-Afghan War, making it one of the biggest protests in Olympic history. At the same time, the world witnessed a major milestone in video game history with the debut of Pac-Man, which quickly became a global sensation. These events, one of political protest and the other of entertainment innovation, marked a defining year. In 1981, the debut of the IBM Model 5150 revolutionized the technology landscape, marking the arrival of the first IBM PC. That same year, in a memorable television moment, Barbara Walters famously asked Katharine Hepburn, "What kind of tree are you?" A question that became one of the most talked about interviews in history. These events, one shaping the future of technology and the other of pop culture, both defined the year. In 2013, Disney's Frozen became a global sensation with its iconic songs and characters. That same year, Mississippi, the last U.S. state to do so, officially ratified the 13th Amendment, finally abolishing slavery. These two events, one in entertainment and the other in history, happened in the same year, highlighting both cultural and social progress. Oxford University celebrated its 200th graduating class in 1290. Meanwhile, the Aztec Empire began in Central America in 1421. These events, separated by centuries, highlighted different milestones in history. In 1922, Betty White was born, and the Ottoman Empire still existed, though it was near its end. The empire officially dissolved in 1923, shortly after Betty White's birth. These two historical moments, one marking a birth and the other the final days of an empire, overlapped in time. The last mammoths lived around the time the pyramids of Egypt were being built, approximately in 2500 BC. These ancient creatures survived long enough to witness one of the greatest architectural achievements in human history. Nintendo was founded in 1889, the same year Jack the Ripper was roaming the streets of London. This eerie overlap connects the start of a major entertainment company with one of history's most infamous criminal mysteries. Harriet Tubman was alive during the times of both Thomas Jefferson and Ronald Reagan. She was born in 1822 when Thomas Jefferson was still alive and passed away in 1913, a few years after Ronald Reagan's birth in 1911. These three influential figures from different periods of American history overlapped in time. Orville Wright, one of the Wright brothers, lived long enough to witness Chuck Yeager break the sound barrier in 1947. He also traveled on an airliner with a wingspan equal to the distance of his first flight, which was 37 meters. This connection highlights the incredible advancements in aviation during Orville Wright's lifetime. The last mammoths lived around the same time the pyramids were being built in ancient Egypt. While the Great Pyramid of Giza was constructed around 2500 BC, some mammoths survived on remote islands until about 4,000 years ago. This means these ancient creatures roamed the earth, while one of the most iconic human achievements was taking shape. In 1977, two significant events occurred in France. The iconic Star Wars film was released in France, marking the beginning of a global cultural phenomenon. At the same time, France carried out its last guillotine execution, ending a long history of capital punishment with this method. These events, one in entertainment and the other in legal history, both took place in the same year. In 1843, two notable events occurred. The Oregon Trail migration began, with thousands of pioneers heading west to settle in Oregon, marking a key moment in American expansion. Around the same time, the fax machine was invented by Alexander Bain, a precursor to modern communication technology. These events, one in the exploration of the American frontier and the other in technological innovation, happened in the same year. In 1889, two iconic creations were born. The Eiffel Tower was completed in Paris, becoming a symbol of French ingenuity and design. That same year, Vincent van Gogh painted his masterpiece, Starry Night, capturing the beauty and emotion of the night sky. These two remarkable achievements in art and architecture were created in the same year, shaping cultural history. Around the year 1428, two significant historical events were unfolding. Oxford University, one of the oldest universities in the world, was already an established institution, continuing to educate scholars. At the same time, the Aztec Empire was rising in Central America, beginning its dominance in the region. These two influential milestones in education and civilization occurred during the same period, though worlds apart. In 1969, the United States achieved the historic moon landing, with astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin becoming the first humans to set foot on the moon. Just 2 years later, in 1971, Switzerland granted women the right to vote, marking a significant step forward for gender equality. These two pivotal events, one in space exploration and the other in social progress, occurred within just a few years of each other. In 1863, the London Underground opened, revolutionizing transportation in the city and becoming the world's first subterranean railway system. Just a few years later, in 1868, the UK saw its last public hanging, marking the end of a controversial practice in British law. These two significant events, one in urban development and the other in legal history, occurred within a few years of each other. Around the year 80 AD, two major historical events took place. The Colosseum in Rome was completed, becoming an iconic symbol of ancient Roman architecture and entertainment. At the same time, parts of the New Testament were being written, shaping the foundations of Christianity. These two significant milestones, one in architecture and the other in religious history, occurred during the same period. In 1929, two influential figures were born. Anne Frank, the Jewish girl who would later write her famous diary during World War II, was born on June 12th. On January 15th of the same year, Martin Luther King Jr., the civil rights leader who would inspire generations with his vision of equality, was born. These two remarkable individuals, one known for her poignant legacy and the other for his fight for justice, shared the same birth year. In 1926, two iconic figures were born. Marilyn Monroe, the legendary actress and cultural icon, was born on June 1st. Just a few months later, Queen Elizabeth II was born on April 21st, who would go on to become the longest reigning monarch in British history. These two influential women, one in Hollywood and the other in royalty, shared the same birth year. Anne Boleyn, the second wife of King Henry VIII and mother of Queen Elizabeth I, is often seen as a cautionary tale for modern times. Her rise to power, marked by her intelligence and ambition, ultimately led to her downfall when she was executed on charges of adultery, treason, and incest in 1536. Anne's story serves as a reminder of the dangers of political maneuvering, the consequences of unchecked power, and the impact of societal and gender expectations. Her life continues to resonate, offering lessons in the complexities of ambition, reputation, and survival in a male-dominated world. In the year 1215, two significant events shaped history. The Magna Carta, a foundational document of English law, was signed, limiting the power of the monarchy and establishing key rights for citizens. At the same time, Beijing was captured and burned by the Mongols under Genghis Khan, marking a crucial moment in the expansion of the Mongol Empire. These two events, one in legal history and the other in military conquest, unfolded in the same year. In 1914, the Port of Houston opened for business, becoming a major hub for trade. That same year, President Woodrow Wilson declared Mother's Day a national holiday. These two milestones in commerce and culture happened in the same year. Sushi and the sandwich were both invented around the late 18th to early 19th centuries. Sushi, in its early form, emerged in Japan as a way to preserve fish, while the sandwich was popularized in England, named after the Earl of Sandwich. These two iconic foods were created during the same time period, each with its own cultural significance. The Brooklyn Bridge in New York was completed in 1883, marking a major achievement in engineering. That same year, the world's first rodeo took place in Pecos, Texas, showcasing the skills of cowboys in a competitive setting. These two events, one in architecture and the other in Western tradition, occurred in the same year. William Shakespeare was alive from 1564 to 1616, during a time when America was still being colonized by European powers. The English playwright lived through the early stages of English settlements in the New World, including the establishment of Jamestown in 1607. This overlap connects a legendary figure in literature with the beginnings of American colonization. On June 18, 2010, the last person to be executed by firing squad in the United States was put to death. Coincidentally, that same day, Toy Story 3 was released, becoming a major hit in theaters. These two events, one in criminal justice and the other in entertainment, occurred on the same day. In 1892, Tchaikovsky's The Nutcracker premiered in St. Petersburg, Russia, becoming one of the most famous ballets in history. That same year, Ellis Island in New York began processing immigrants, marking the start of a new chapter in America's history as a melting pot. These two events, one in the arts and the other in immigration, occurred in the same year. The last known widow of a Civil War veteran, Maudie Hopkins, passed away in 2008 at the age of 89. That same year, Barack Obama won his first presidential election, marking a historic moment in U.S. politics. These two significant events, one in history and the other in modern politics, occurred in the same year. In 1997, Princess Diana and Mother Teresa both passed away just days apart. Princess Diana was tragically killed in a car crash in Paris on August 31st, while Mother Teresa died on September 5th after struggling with health issues. These two beloved figures, one from the world of royalty and the other from humanitarian work, left the world mourning in the same week. Mark Twain, also known as Samuel Clemens, was still alive when the Chicago Cubs last won the World Series in 1907 and 1908. Twain passed away in 1910, just a few years after the Cubs' victories. This overlap connects the life of a legendary author with a historic moment in sports. Basketball was invented in 1891, just a few years after Sherlock Holmes, created by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, was first published in 1887. These two cultural milestones, one in sports and the other in literature, emerged around the same time, shaping their respective fields. Charlie Chaplin and Adolf Hitler were both born in 1889. Later, in 1940, Chaplin famously portrayed Hitler in the satirical film The Great Dictator, using humor to criticize the dictator's regime. This eerie coincidence of shared birth year highlights a striking contrast between the two figures. Leo Tolstoy, the renowned author of War and Peace and Anna Karenina, died in 1910. That same year, the first infrared photographs were published, marking a significant advancement in photography. These two groundbreaking events, one in literature and the other in technology, occurred in the same year. In 1929, influential figures like Anne Frank, Martin Luther King Jr., Audrey Hepburn, and Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis were born. This year produced icons across politics, entertainment, and history. Orville Wright, co-inventor of the first airplane, died in 1948, just 1 year after Chuck Yeager broke the sound barrier in 1947. This marks a fascinating link between early flight and modern aviation milestones. In 1959, Hawaii became the 50th state, joining the United States. That same year, the first Daytona 500 race took place, marking the beginning of a major motorsport tradition. These two significant events shaped American history and culture in the same year. In 2008,